Today we're going to be going over how to use bulk files to launch sponsored product campaigns, specifically keyword targeting, product targeting, as well as creating auto campaigns. And I'm going to be putting timestamps in the description so you'll be able to jump to whatever spot if you want to use this for reference. And then I'm also going to be giving you some pro tips when it comes to using sort of a copy and paste template to do this at scale, as well as some pro tips when it comes to naming your files and also the folder structure that we use in our ad agency to be able to keep track of all of these different files. Cool. So let's get right into it, and let's start by creating a sponsored product keyword targeting campaign. Now, I am going to be copying and pasting from this template. You will be able to get access to this template if you would like. It also has some templates for your sponsored brands and your sponsored display ads. I'll probably do those in a separate video. Right now, we're going to be going over sponsored product ads. If you would like a copy of this template, there will be a link in the description. You can go enter your email and get this download. Cool. All right. So in this template, there's a lot of really good explanations. I've basically replicated everything that's in Amazon's documentation. There is a direct link to the documentation if you would like to read it yourself. But what I'm going to be doing is copying this right here, which is keywords. We're also going to be going through what it looks like if you want to just say create more than one ad group, or if you want to say put additional products into this campaign. But all I'm going to do to kind of create this is I'm going to copy this section right here, and I'm just going to paste it into a new tab. And I am going to go over all the different rows and also kind of what they mean, so you can get a bit of a lay of the land of kind of what is a bulk file in general. Also, before I get into it, I probably should talk about what actually a bulk file is. If you're searching out this, then most likely you have an understanding what a bulk file is. But bulk files are essentially a really great way to manage your campaigns at scale. It's a little bit of a hybrid between, say, a software and like having to do things manually. The one thing that's really important to understand in bulk files is formatting, and that's really important when it comes to things like creating campaigns. So we're going to be going over formatting today, but I like to think of it as if you downloaded a full bulk file, it's essentially a two-dimensional view of your entire ad account inside of a spreadsheet. We do have another video how you can actually use bulk files to do bid changes. So if you would like that, there's other ways that you can use bulk files. But today we're going to be going over how to use them to launch campaigns. Again, specifically sponsored products. You can launch other ad types using bulk files as well. All right, so let's quickly go over some of these rows, what they mean, and you will see a bunch of highlighted areas in green. These are the things that you're going to need to change if you're simply going to copy and paste from the template. Honestly, I highly recommend you and get the template. All you need is just to enter an email. We're not going to give your email away or anything crazy like that. We're just going to throw you onto our newsletter, so you'll get more bonus information by doing that. But it's much, much easier if you start with something like this and you're able to just change things. And I'm also going to give you some pro tips when it comes to saying kind of creating your first. If the example I'm going to use is if we wanted to create a exact match, phrase match, and broad match, we wanted to put them in different campaigns with essentially the same products and the same keywords, just with slightly different variations there. So we're actually going to be going over that as a use case, as how you can use a bulk file to generate a whole bunch of campaigns at scale. Because what I've found, and we've used a ton of different softwares out there, there's some really great options, but I still think that bulk files are the best way to launch campaigns and accounts at scale, especially if you have like hundreds of campaigns you're trying to launch. So this first row, and again, anything that is not highlighted is something that you can just copy and paste from the template, but I do want to go over just so you understand like what it means. So this products column right here just says, hey, this is a sponsored product campaign. So let's say, so now, hey, we're doing sponsored products. Now the entity column is really important to understand if you are trying to make an adjustment with a full downloaded file. But essentially what the entity column says is this is the type of information that is contained within this row. So you can see in this entity column right here, this is for a campaign. So this has all the information on the campaign level. So, you know, when you create a campaign, you're putting like the campaign name, you have the start date, you have what kind of bidding strategy you want, etc. That's what this information is. And then on down the line. And again, we'll go over the specific entities when we get to those lines in creating the file. The operations column, this is unique to the 2.0 update. So this is the 2.0 versus the legacy version. The legacy version is no longer available. So I wanted to be able to make this video for those of you who are trying to migrate to the new 2.0 format. The operations column essentially tells Amazon the two main ones are either create or update. So create, which is the only thing you're going to use when you're creating campaigns, is, hey, I want to make something new, something that's no longer existing in my current account. I want to create it in my account. The other option you would use if you downloaded a bulk file, for example, in that bid adjustment video, we use the operation update because we're saying, hey, we want to make changes to something that already exists in our account, and that's going to be an update. And we'll go over things like campaign ID, targeting types, etc. when we get to the specific lines. But these are the three things that are really going to apply to all of these. Cool. Very similar to when you go and you create a campaign manually inside of your ad account. All of those sort of items that you have to add, you're giving your campaign a name, you're identifying a specific start date. You're going to say, is this a manual campaign? Is this an auto campaign? We need to give it a budget. Are we going to put it inside of a portfolio, etc.? Well, all of those informational pieces, we have to give those to Amazon when we create our campaigns using bulk files. A lot of these items are going to be things that you're going to need to know anyways. This particular line is where we sort of create our campaign. So we're essentially creating it in steps. However, when it's uploaded, all of these things are then pushed to Amazon and your entire campaign is created. But the first thing that you need to do is put the information at the campaign level. So you can see this entity, this is campaign. So these are all the things that are pertaining to our campaign. Let's go over specifically the highlighted ones, and then I'll touch on the ones that aren't highlighted. And you'll notice that some of these are blanks. The reason why is because you're only needing to fill out the informational pieces that are applicable to that specific entity type. So in this case, we have our campaign. Now we're going to give our campaign name in two places. These ID columns are the other things that really screw a lot of people up when it comes to the new 2.0 file versus the legacy format, because these columns weren't really present in the old legacy format. When you are creating a campaign, your campaign ID is actually going to match whatever you put in this campaign name column here. Now, after you upload this file, Amazon will actually give your campaigns, it will assign it a numeric value, so like a number, and that is what you will use to reference the campaign later on. For example, if you were adding a negative keyword, right? In the old legacy format, you would simply specify the campaign name. That's no longer the case now. You specify the campaign ID, which in that case, again, would be the numeric value, but because this doesn't actually exist inside of your account anywhere, you can't reference a numeric value. So what we do for the upload format is we'll simply enter whatever campaign name it is that we're specifying. So in this campaign column, you want to call it whatever. I'm going to give it the example, and I'm going to kind of go a little bit through our naming structure. So what we do is we have what we call a product identifier, just some sort of descriptive word that will reference whatever products we intend to advertise in this. So I'm just going to say cup here. You would want to have a much more specific. Other people like to also put in the specific ASINs, or if there's a specific SKU. Again, something that references the products is helpful here. Then the other things that we do is specify what type of ad type this is. So we put SP for sponsored product ads, and then we like to do a space, and then whatever our targeting is going to be. So in this case is keyword targeting, and I'm going to give the example of exact match. So we do SPE for exact match, and then what we do is we put another dash. We do dashes. Some people like the pipe. It doesn't really matter. We just like to keep it uniform. Whatever you intend to do, it's easier if you just kind of keep it uniform across the account. Then what we like to put after the second this dash is going to be whatever the strategy is going to be for the account. For instance, in this case, say we're doing a ranking campaign, okay? And the other thing that we like to specify is where we actually found these keywords. So do we find these keywords inside of a search term report? Did we find them by doing competitor analysis? Maybe these are the top competitors ranked on some of our top keywords. Just something that identifies identifies where we found these keywords and what our intentions are. Are we trying to do a low bid campaign? Are we trying to do a profitability campaign? Is this a indexation campaign? Some sort of information that allows us to sort of understand the intent behind the campaign, because later on, especially if you start doing bid adjustments inside of bulk files, understanding sort of the intent behind what you're doing with advertising can really help you better analyze whatever the performance data is for that campaign or the items inside of that campaign, and then make better, more informed optimization decisions. So we find in entering this, for this case, I'm just going to do like H10. So we found these in Helium 10, and then this is going to be ranking campaign. I'm just going to do it like this. Other things we often put in here would be, we might put what the bidding strategy is, if that's really important to the campaign. So I might do like FB for fixed bids. And then we do like to put the date that we launched this. So we do, it would be 10/29/23 is how we do that. We might also put, I think we have a little naming tag that allows us to see that our agency was the one that launched the campaign, or if it's simply a legacy one that we've renamed. Again, whatever you want to do for your naming. I might make an entire video on our naming structure. If that would be something that would be helpful, let me know. I can make that video. But once you've determined your campaign name, you are going to put that in the campaign ID column. And I'll talk about what this kind of looks like to carry it down. The other thing that you'll want to, now this is an optional column. If you go through and you look at the template here, you will see that this is like labeled optional. If you don't intend to put this inside of a portfolio, you could just leave this blank and that's fine. It will just be generated inside the account, no portfolio. If you would like to put this inside a portfolio, what you would need to do is get the portfolio ID. Now, the portfolio IDs, you'll need to get that from a download bulk file. If that's something that you want to do, there is one tab in your downloaded bulk file that says portfolio. And then if you go on that, you'll see the portfolio names as well as the portfolio IDs inside of a column. You would simply copy and paste the portfolio ID from whatever portfolio you want this generated in, and you would paste that number in this portfolio ID column. In this case, I'm just going to leave it blank. So I don't care about portfolios now. The other thing that is important to enter, and this is your start date. Now, your start date must be in whatever, you can put today's date in the start date if you prefer. Let me see. This is 2022, 2023 here. Okay. And the thing to remember about this is this start date cannot be in the past. I've even gotten tripped up with this before, and say I go in and I'll create like a huge bulk file today and maybe something came up, or I don't need to launch this till later on, and then I'll go in tomorrow to upload this and I'm going to get an error because tomorrow, today's date is going to be in the past, and so that will create issues, and you'll be able to go through and realize that like, oh crap, that was incorrect. But in any case, you need to make sure that your start date is either today's date or sometime in the future. For instance, if I wanted to make sure this is uploaded and it's going to be enacted next Tuesday, then I could put the start date as next Tuesday and upload it now, and it's not going to go live till next Tuesday. Honestly, we rarely use that option, but it is an option if there was, for some reason, a particular campaign you wanted to kind of create ahead of time and then have it start at the appropriate time. The other thing that is important to note is that this formatting must be in this particular order. And again, there are notes in this file. So these are kind of like some notes on the documentation. So the format must be year, month, date in this specific format. So you can put like two numbers for the year. It has to be complete 4 numbers. The other thing is in the targeting type, this is a manual campaign. This will be different if it's an automatic campaign. And here we have the daily budget, which again, something that you should edit. So I could put $100, $15, whatever makes sense for me. And then you can do the bidding strategy. Now, bidding strategy here, have this as dynamic bids only. If you go over here to bidding strategy, I'll put some additional notes in here as far as just for this naming structure, because it doesn't have to be specific. Like it has to be this exact format. So I'll put some additional notes here as far as down only or fixed bids or dynamic up and down, but we're just going to leave this dynamic bids down only for that. The other thing that I didn't go over is this state column. So this is going to be enabled, meaning I want this campaign to be active. Now, if for some reason I wanted to create this and I wanted to start it today, but I wanted it to not be active, you could put paused here. and then it would be created in the campaign, but it'd be created where the campaign was actually paused. Again, that's not really something that typically uses as a usual workflow, but I wanted to cover that just in case that was something that you would need to do. So that's what we do. We've created our campaign. Now what we need to do is specify the things inside of the campaign, be it these ones right here, which is your placement percentage adjustments. Now to create the placement percentage adjustments, what you do is you drag down this campaign ID. Now make sure this is dragged down properly. So if I just drag this down here, notice how because this is in a number, sometimes it will change some of the numbers, which is going to create errors in your file. So I like to just copy and paste it instead of dragging it down, just in case it changes like a number or something and messes me up. But I'm going to drag down this campaign ID, which essentially says, hey, these bidding adjustment rows are applicable to this specific campaign. And that's why sort of the ID column is really important, because it tells Amazon or whatever their backend is that, hey, these things are going to exist within this campaign. And I'm just going to do all three at once because we have these three bidding strategies. So then on the bidding strategy, you have whatever the bidding strategy is. So you're going to drag that down for these three. Now we have three different placements inside of our campaigns now, as opposed to the last two. Historically, it was just product pages and top of search, but now we also have rest of search. Now you may or may not have access to adjustments for rest of search inside your campaign, inside the interface. However, I did test it. Even if you don't have access to that manual in the inside of your campaign manager, because maybe your interface hasn't updated yet, which pro tip, if you want to get access to a lot of betas, oftentimes if it's not already present in the account, you can reach out to Amazon or open a support ticket and request it, and oftentimes you'll get access to it a little bit sooner than later. Not always, but it's not always a bad idea to ask if it's something that you think is going to be important for your optimizations. However, I have also tested, and it is possible to adjust rest of search placements using bulk files, even if you don't have access to this option yet inside of your interface. That might be something for those of you kind of waiting for that rollout to happen, and you still want to take advantage of rest of search placement percentages. You can do it this way. All right, these are the things that we would want to, so the rows. So if we wanted to set a placement percentage for, say, product pages, top of search, or rest of search, you would want to enter in some sort of value here in this percentage column. Now I'm also going to go back here to my template and show you here. So it has to be entered as a figure of digits. You had to have the percentage. It was pretty particular. You had to have a percentage on inside of the number. However, right now, you just have to have it in a number. So for example, this is 0, which means 0%. If I wanted to do 10%, I would just do 10. If I wanted 100% top of search, I would put 100. So it's in just like a round number, not necessarily, you're not going to indicate a percentage, even though it will equate to a percentage, essentially. So we've done our placement percentages. So we're not going to do anything right now. We're just going to leave those blank. And now we have to create our ad group. Again, very similar to what we did before in dragging down the campaign IDs. We need to drag it down to the ad group. So it's going to say, hey, this ad group is going to be created within this campaign. And I'm also going to show you what it looks like if you wanted to, say, create 2 ad groups inside of a campaign, what that format looks like in a bulk file. But first, again, we drag this down, and then very similar to how we did the campaign names, we're going to specify an ad group name. Now it's really up to you. Oftentimes we will use a single ad group inside of a campaign, but when we do that, what we do is we just take the campaign name and we use the ad group name as the campaign name. It's just like a one-to-one. If you're going to create multiple ad groups, that might get a little bit clunky, but for right now, that's what I'm going to do. And very similar to how we put the campaign name in the campaign ID, we're going to also be putting the ad group name inside of the ad group ID here. Now, the other things, again, this state is enabled means, hey, we want this ad group to be active. And then you're also going to see the ad group default bid here. Now, if you're familiar with ad group default bids at all, you know that essentially it's a little bit like a placeholder. And as long as the keywords, which we're going to go over in a second, have different bids, your ad group default bid, it's going to be overridden by whatever bids you have at the targeting level. So it doesn't really matter all that much. But if you want, you could change it to something else, or you could just leave it as whatever it is inside of the template. But other than that, we are done. So we've created our ad group. Now we need to add in the products that we're going to be entering into this campaign. So what products do we want to advertise? And the way we have to reference those products is by their SKUs. And what you do, again, you're going to copy down the campaign saying, hey, these products, so we have 2 products in this case, is going to be inside of this particular campaign. And then now, because we're also dealing with the ad group level, because products are placed inside of ad groups, we also have to copy down the ad group ID, which is in this case, of course, the ad group name, to say, hey, I want these products to be created inside of this specific ad group, is how that works. I'm just going to highlight these 2 columns as we go over. Again, enabled says, hey, these things are active. Again, for whatever reason, if you wanted like to advertise this, but you want to create this product in this campaign, but keep it paused, I'm not 100% sure the use case of that, but just so you're aware, if you did still want to create these things and then just have them paused, you could put paused in any of these columns and it would essentially create it, but it wouldn't be active. And then all you have to do is put a SKU. So again, whatever your particular SKU is, I'm going to say in this case, it's SKU 1 and SKU 2. Again, you would want to have the specific SKUs in your account. And this is relevant to Seller Central accounts. Now, if you're referencing a Vendor Central account, those go off the ASINs. It doesn't work off of the SKU. But I think most people watching this typically use Seller Central accounts. So that is how we would put products. Now, say for instance, we wanted to add an additional product, all we would have to do is create another row. We would essentially copy all this information. So again, we have the campaign name, ad group name, all of the other information that we had before, and then you would just change whatever the SKU is. So in this case, SKU 3. So if you wanted to add additional SKUs, that's how that would work. All right, now we've gotten all the way down to looking at additional keywords. So this is how we create the keyword rows. And again, I'll show you what it looks like to generate and add more keywords into this campaign as well. Similar to what we did before with the campaign ID and the ad group ID, we're also copying those down because we want these keywords to be created again in this campaign, in this particular ad group. And then going over the entity column again, we have state, which is enabled. So these things are active. Here is where you will specify the bids. So this is in the bids column. So say if I wanted $1 bid on this and I wanted, I don't know, $1.50 on this bid, I would put that here. Now this is where we have the keyword text. You might just copy and paste all of the keywords down the list. That would work as well. But here I'm just going to say, these are probably terrible keywords to be advertising on for ranking. I'm just going to put cup and bottle. For this case, again, not a great keyword selection. And also you have these match types. We go over here. So the match type options are exact, phrase, and broad here. In this case, we want exact match. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to copy down exact match for these campaigns. Because remember, we put exact match here. You don't want to get this screwed up and say, oh, this is the exact match, and then launch it in a broad match campaign here. And so that is essentially how we would go through and create this campaign. Now, what I could be doing, if this was all I wanted to do in the account, I could go in and I could upload this to my account and it would launch, it would create this campaign inside of my account. Now, if you're just doing a single campaign, honestly, I don't know, it might be easier just to go through and do it manually, but this is where the real benefit of bulk files comes in. So here, I'm going to show you a cool trick. So say I created this, right? I have this campaign where I have exact match, my ranking keywords, but what if I wanted to launch this campaign in exact phrase and broad match, and I wanted to create different campaigns for this. So what I could do is I could simply paste this here, and this is where the benefit of, say, using spreadsheets is really helpful. I am in Google Sheets, and the shortcuts and how this looks is going to be a little bit different than if you're using Excel. However, this function also is available in Excel, which is a find and replace function. Now, if you're in Google Sheets, you can actually use the shortcut Control H, and that will do find and replace. You're essentially wanting to change something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use find and replace to change the campaign names. And if you like, also to change the match types as well. But we'll go over that. Find and replace simply says, hey, I want you to find where this thing is located in whatever data set it is that I'm highlighting. And then I would like you to replace it with something. So you can also see in the search options, this is for a specific range. And if you note where the range is, it's from row 12 to 21. And this is really important because if I did the entire sheet, then it would change everything. And I only want to change, again, the information for this particular campaign. So you can do find, which is SPE and I want to change it with SPP. So if I did replace all, then notice all of these places where I have campaign IDs and the campaign names and ad group names has gotten changed to, and whatever also I can do is I can say, hey, I want to find wherever you have exact, and I want to change it to phrase. To replace all, done. Then you notice that this all has a naming structure SPP, which for us, again, this is our nomenclature for saying, hey, this is a sponsored product phrase match campaign. You might have different naming structures, but it's essentially the same. Like, hey, find this thing in the campaign and change this. And then it probably would have been easier for me just to say phrase and copy this down. But say if I had like 10 keywords in here, it's a little bit easier. Just you're already there, just changing it really quick. And so I have these phrase matches. I might want to change the bid structure here. Maybe I want to say, hey, I want to be a little bit lower for broad match. I don't know if it matters all that, or for phrase match, and then maybe a little bit lower for broad. That could be an option as well. Another cool thing is because this is a spreadsheet, what you could do is calculations. If I had, these were the old bids, and said, hey, I wanted to do this 20% below the suggested, you can do the bids times, I guess I'm not going to work. Did the word I want it in here, and then I can do this, and then I can copy this over, and you would want to paste values only, and then you could just delete this, and then you could immediately have that the new updated bids. So that's actually a really nice option, right? Okay, so we have that. We do that for our sponsored product campaign. Now we can again easily copy and paste, Control H, find and replace, SPP, and we want to change it to SPB. We would replace all of those, and then we would probably want to replace phrase, broad, and then we would replace that. And then again, we have 3 different campaigns, all of the same products, the same keywords, but our exact phrase and broad campaigns. And then again, you might want to go over here and say, hey, I want to take these even lower, and I would like to do, another 20% below these and have even lower bids for these keywords. Or again, I'm just giving an example of like, say 20% below the other one. You might want to do like 50% below, etc. But that's a really quick way of doing that. Then I could then upload this spreadsheet, and instead of just having a single campaign created, I would have 3 campaigns created, which can be very helpful. So as you can see, this is a really great way to launch a bunch of things at scale, okay? So let's go through what it would look like if I wanted to add more than one ad group into a campaign. So I'm going to copy and paste this particular campaign, and then we're going to go over what it would look like if I say wanted to add an additional ad group. So we're going to have 2 ad groups here. So what I would probably want to do is change this campaign name. So I'm going to do SPE close. I'm going to do SPE plus P here for the campaign name, just because I'm going to show you what it looks like. Like, say we want to do an exact and a phrase match, right? This is our campaign that has exact and phrase. So we already have the exact match ad group in this case. And then what I want to do is create another ad group. So have one ad group with exact match, one ad group and phrase match. All you would have to do is this one here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this information right here, because again, I'm not highlighting the campaign name because I'm going to specify SPE, and that's going to replace this. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to highlight all of the rows that I want to change, and I would say, hey, find SPE, change it with SPP. Again, specific range, and you can say this is from E42. This is E42 column instead of these columns over here. If I do replace all, then I replace those, and then again, I want to say, hey, replace stacked with phrase, replace all, done, and then you can see I have SPP and then my SP-P. So that's essentially what you're doing. You're just replicating what we did up here when we created our ad group. But what you're doing is you're copying over, or you're copying down the campaign ID, because you're saying, okay, I want this ad group. We're going to create this, but it's going to be creating in this original campaign. And then we're going to create this ad group. So your ad group name and your ad group ID which again is the ad group name, is going to be different, but then it's going to be the same campaign name because we want both of these ad groups created inside this specific campaign. So that's how you would, again, use the find and replace options to create a whole bunch of campaigns at scale, and then what it looks like to create different ad groups instead of the same campaign. All right, now that we've gone over our how to create keyword campaigns, let's go back and let's look at the template to see how do you create a product targeting campaign inside and, using a bulk file. We're going to go back here and you are going to copy over the header, but as we already have the header here, and I'm going to freeze this top row so we can still see it. You only need the header row once, so we don't need those lines. If you go over here, you can see that this is a manual 1 campaign 2 ad group, keywords, and then product targeting. I'm going to copy over these and then I'm going to delete some of them because some of these pertain to keyword targeting. So let's do that. Copy and paste this here. And you can see in this entity column where it says keyword, this is actually the ad group that contains the keywords. So the structure is exactly the same as this structure right here. What we're looking for is where we have the ad group and the product targeting. So I'm going to delete these rows here because we don't need them. We're just seeing, hey, what does a product targeting campaign look like? So exact same things that we did when we created our campaigns before. We're going to name them. I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm going to say, okay, what do we, I think we use PT for product targeting. I'm going to say top products on cup. We just say, hey, and we're going to do, actually, this is not fixed. Incorrect. So what I can do actually, if I wanted to fix that because it's not fixed bids, I could actually select all of these. I did Control H. I can see where I found the bid, that, and I can say, see how I have nothing here? I can actually delete this. If I say replace all, that's going to say, hey, find out wherever I have dash fixed bids dash and replace with nothing. And then actually, I didn't want to do that because I got rid of the last dash. So I'm going to replace it with a dash. Place all, and then when we fix that, find and replace is super, super useful when doing this. Okay, so we have all of our top products that were ranked on cup. I'm going to leave the portfolio ID blank because I don't really have anything. Again, my campaign name and my campaign ID are going to be exactly the same. My start date, oh, see, I got the start date wrong on the other ones. Let's fix those. Those are correct. This one is old, so I'm just copying it from the other one. Again, it's a manual campaign because product targeting is a manual campaign. We have our budget. I'm going to put $25 a day for this and specify our bidding strategy, which I'm just going to leave it down only. Now for our placement percentages, which again is these 3 lines here. Again, all we have to do is copy over down our campaign ID, which is our campaign name. And then we're going to specify if we want a placement percentage. I don't want a placement percentage in this case, so I'm just going to leave those at 0. Then we're going to copy down our campaign, our ad group. In this case, I'm just going to put the ad group as the campaign name. So I'm going to copy over our ad group and then here. Again, this is enabled. If you would like to create a specific ad group default bid, you can. I don't really care in this case because I'm putting different bids at the keyword level. So we're going to add our products, which again, we're assuming we're adding 2 products here. So we're copying down the campaign name, and now we're also copying down the ad group name. And then for our SKUs, we're going to assume we have SKU 1 and SKU 2. And that's all we have to do. Again, enabled means all of these things are going to be active as soon as they're created inside of the account, providing again that the due date is today, or the start date, excuse me. But now we have our product, our sponsored products product targeting. So this is where we add our ASIN. We're copying down the campaign name and the ad group in the ID columns. And then we still specify our bids in the bids column. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to spend $1 bid on these. Then we enter in our product, our ad groups. And let's expand this so you can see what it is. All right. I have put these in brackets, but this is the very specific formatting that this needs to be in. So it has to say ASIN equals whatever the quotation marks. So it's going to be ASIN equals quotation marks, whatever the ASIN it is that you would like to advertise on, and then quotation and quotation marks here. Again, you're going to have quotation, and this is for exact ASIN targeting. If you wanted to use expanded ASIN targeting, this part where it says ASIN is a little bit different, but right now we're just going to do the example of an exact ASIN targeting campaign. This is essentially what you would do. And if I wanted to say advertise on a different ASINs, let me just like go pop on Amazon.com. Now you might have generated a list of something. I'm going to assume we want to, all right, so say we want to advertise on this particular ASIN. What I would do is I would grab the ASIN here. Let's go back over to our file here. I'm just going to drag this down. Then I'm going to pop this in here. Boom, there we go. That's how I would be adding different ASINs into this. And I'm just going to double check. Yep, so it changed these because I dragged it down, which is not cool. That's not going to create errors for me. So that's essentially how you create your product targeting campaign. Same thing, except for dumping in keywords here, you're going to dump in ASINs here, and bids are still going to be specified over here. And make sure you're using this exact structure or formatting to do the ASIN. All right, last thing we're going to go over is how to generate an auto campaign. Now, honestly, I'm not super thrilled with how Amazon chose to update this, because before, when you generated an auto campaign, you could specify different bids for each of the different targeting types. So close match, loose match, complements, and substitutes are the 4 different targeting types instead of autos. You can't do that anymore. You used to also be able to generate autos where you could say pause everything except for close match. And we actually had macros to be able to create these at scale for all of our products. However, that's not a function anymore inside of the new 2.0 bulk files, unfortunately. If that changes, I will let you know. But as of right now, all you can do is put one specific bid, and that's going to apply to all the different targeting types. Now, if you went through and say downloaded an existing bulk file, that it will show you all 4 of the targeting types, and you can then adjust bids on each of the individual targeting types, or say pause everything except for close match, or do some other manipulations there. But you can't do that when you're creating the campaigns, unfortunately, which makes auto campaigns a little bit easier to create. But honestly, again, it's a bit of pain for the functionality, but let's go through it. Okay, very similar to what we did before. We're going to have to give the specifications for the campaign, which is going to include the campaign name. For us, we use, let's see, we're putting cup, and then we're saying, hey, this is SP. For us, we do SP for autos. If we had, say, close match, loose match, or we're only doing some of the targeting types, we would specify that in the campaign name. And then we often like to do, again, some sort of strategy. So if I put like that for us is a naming tag that says, hey, this is a low bid campaign, or we might say aggressive. If we're doing an aggressive auto, it doesn't really matter. We're probably going to want to put a low bid on this one. And then again, I would want to specify the launch date, which for us is 10/29/23 right now, and we'll just put that. So again, you want to take that exact campaign ID. We're putting that in the campaign name. Again, I'm not doing a portfolio on this one either. Now, again, your date, you want to make sure is today's date. So we're going to put that in the targeting type. Again, this is something that's already in the template. So if you want to just copy and paste it like I'm doing, it's a lot easier than trying to recreate these things. But you all have your targeting type is going to be auto. Again, it's going to be enabled, and you want to specify, again, whatever your budget is, and you would give it a bidding strategy, which again, dynamic bids down only, or you can specify another bidding type. Same as before, if you wanted to do a bid adjustments, I'm going to keep this 0, seeing as this is an auto campaign. I'm not a huge fan of doing placement percentage on the autos unless it's like a very specific strategy you're running. And so I'm just going to leave this 0. If I wanted to say do a top of search or a product page adjustment, I would put, again, some sort of percentage here. Again, we're going to create our ad group. If we wanted to, we would specify this. And again, I'm just copying making the ad group name and the campaign name exactly the same. You can change it. If you wanted to say create additional ad groups inside of this auto campaign, that would be an option as well. It'd be exactly the same as we went over when we did this, wherever it was where we did more than one ad group in the campaign. All right, again, you put your ad group name, and then if you want to adjust your ad group default bid, you can. Otherwise, no, actually, ad group default is super important in this case because this is going to apply to all your different targeting types. If I'm putting a low bid here, I want to put low bid. In this case, I'm just going to say, hey, it's 25 cents. That's what I'll do. Now we have to specify the products that are going to be in our campaign. In this case, we have 2 products, same as we've done in the examples before. which is SKU1 and SKU2. If, for example, I only wanted to advertise a single product inside of this ad group, then I would just delete whichever row contained the SKU that I didn't want. So maybe we only want to advertise SKU1 in this ad group because it's the best seller for whatever reason. That is the format for creating your sponsored product keyword campaigns, how you can copy and use them at scale. Also, how you create product targeting campaigns and auto campaigns, and you can have all of the campaigns that you would like to have created can be in one singular upload. Sometimes if I'm doing campaign launches for more than one product, I oftentimes like to make different tabs. So if I had, say it was product 1 and then I wanted to launch a bunch of campaigns for product 2, I kind of like creating a new tab. Just it's a little bit easier for me to make sense of it. For Amazon though, it doesn't matter. As long as the formatting is correct and it's contained within the upload file, it can all be in the same tab. Doesn't matter at all. Now for our naming structure, what we like to do is sort of have a description for what it is that we're doing with this particular file. For this, maybe I say cup launch campaigns, and then I would just specify, let's see, what do? We put the account name, and then we also put the marketplace for this particular account, and we say it's the US marketplace, and then we would say, all right, what are we kind of doing with this file? What are these what kind of campaigns is contained within this, and then the date that we created this file, which in this case again is 10/29/23, and then that kind of helps us keep track of stuff. The other thing that we do is we have a subfolder inside of all of our client folder structures that is only for storing bulk files of campaign launch spreadsheets. So if I ever wanted to say like, where's my record of all of my past campaign launches, I would go to that client folder and then I would go directly to that subfolder, and then it just keeps everything clear and simple instead of just having one big ginormous file for like even a specific client. It's really helpful to like kind of keep these in some sort of subfolder. Okay, so once I'm done with this, and if I want to, again, have these new campaigns created inside of my account, then what you need to do is you would go into your account, and in this case, I'm opening up Vendor Central. Like I said, you can use bulk files inside of Vendor Central accounts. The only difference, it's exactly the same format, but instead of tying it to the SKU, you would tie it to the ASIN would be how it would be different. But otherwise, you go into your account, you would select sponsored ads. If you click on this, you're going to go to the bulk operations tab, and that's when you'll see this. And then you'll have to go to upload your file to create your campaigns. You're going to click on this, choose your file. So what I would have to do here is I would go to, back to my file. I would have to download it to my computer. And then what I can do is when I choose my file, I would just, in my case, this goes to my downloads folder. So I simply select from my downloaders folder. So I've selected it and you'll see it appear here. And then what I would do is I'm going to click upload to process changes. I'm not going to do that because it's not even going to go through because it's referencing the wrong SKUs. It's going to create a whole mess inside of the account. But if you are done, then you'll scroll down here to this uploads. And when it is processing, you'll see it say processing files. It could take a second, but when it is done, you should see, again, especially if you're copying and pasting from the template format, you should see this finish successfully. If you have an issue, so here it was finished with warnings, or we might have an issue. Yeah, looks like everything's been successful. You might see some errors. You can download the report. I found that the new error reports inside of that Amazon's using these days are a lot more informative than their old error reports used to be. So I would just download the error report, see what rows contain the errors, and then I would go back, and as long, again, as you're kind of copying and pasting from the template and referencing things that are exactly correct in your account, so as the SKUs and making sure the start dates are changed, you should be super good. So hopefully that was super helpful for you. Again, I'm going to be putting timestamps in the description so you can hop around if you need to come back and reference this. And if you would like a copy of that bulk file template, I would go check the link in the description. And if you're wondering how to use bulk files to adjust your bids, I suggest go watching this video.